would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. There is a hurting in my family, and there is sorrow in my town. There is a panic all across the nation, and there is wailing the whole world round. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly, and may the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though they burn our eyes. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. Give me a mighty yoke to hold my confusion, and give me a desert to hold my fears. Give me a sunset to hold my wonder, and give me an ocean to hold my tears. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of
Welcome to worship and the community of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. If this is your first time with us, welcome. If you are returning to us from a time away, welcome. If this is your religious and spiritual home, welcome. Hear these words from the Reverend Dr. Angela Herrera. Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards, and the world needs vision. Bring them with you. And your joy and your passion. Bring your loving and your courage and your conviction. Bring your need for healing and your powers to heal. There is work to do. And all that we need to do it is here. Welcome. A few announcements today to let you know that the community court lunch program has started up again, and it takes a village, and ours in particular, to make that happen. For details on how you can participate, please go to the UUCE Facebook community page, or excuse me, the official page, or go to chat or our email list biz, or look in the weekly connection for details. A reminder that on August 30th, we were having a service called Spinning the Web of Life, and the folks who are putting that service together would really like it if we, the people, would send in photos or videos that demonstrate our understanding and participation in our seventh principle, which is about understanding that we are all a part of the interdependent web of life. Two other things to remind you is that, as you know, the board has been conducting some town halls to try and determine whether or not we as a congregation are ready to go into search this year. Those town halls are over, but the surveys are still available for you to fill out, and they're really important that we get double the amount of folks who've already participated. I think we have something like 70 or 77. If we could double that, it would be great. I know we said that the deadline, I think, was Friday, but we're extending that deadline through today. So please go online and fill out that survey. It's really, really critical that we have information from the congregation to know if we can proceed or not. And last but not least, invitation to anyone that Katie and I are going to start a Soul Matters small group ministry. And it will have its first meeting this Wednesday at 7:30. Information will be on our website. This Wednesday, 7:30, we'll be discussing matters related to the theme for the upcoming month of September, which is, if I'm not mistaken, renewal. Let us continue with worship.
Continue to pay with their lives. We will not be silent till justice is won. The future is all or none. Justice, hear our cry. Oh, justice, hear our cry. We will not turn our backs nor eyes while people of color continue to die. The truth has ignited a fire this time. Oh, justice, hear our cry. Lift your voice and sing. Lift up your voice with me and sing. And pray one day this land may be a nation of freedom and equality. United we're hopeful for what new days bring. Oh, lift up your voice and sing. All of us or none, the future is all of us or none. No more will we sit idly by while people continue to pay with their lives. We will not be silent till justice is won. The future is all or none. The future is all of us or none.
In times of darkness, we stumble toward the tiny flame. In times of cold, we seek the warming fire. In times of repression, we reach for the lamp of truth. In times of loss, we pray for comforting light. In times of joy, we light a candle of celebration. Spirit of life, as we kindle this flame, help us find what we need today.
Before I offer the call to worship, I just want to let you all know, because Mitch didn't tell you, that he wrote that introit, All of Us or None, and it's going to be included in a songbook that I believe is being put out by the U of O. So my hat is off to Mitch this morning for that song. These are words by Patricia Ranzoni. To journey without expectation of arrival, to search without expectation of find, to find without expectation of being found, to question without expectation of knowing, to hope without expectation of proof, to prize without expectation of being prized, to want without expectation of having, to have without expectation of owning, to give without expectation of yield, to forgive without expectation of being absolved, to sing without expectation of being heard. The story for today was first told to me by my friend Jay Sperling, and it's a story by Lauren Isley, and some of you know it. It's called The Starfish. Sorry, I just was distracted by something in the chat, and Dick Lesher reminded me that apparently I announced that the Soul Matters group is going to meet on Wednesday, and it's listed as Tuesday. So whatever date is the 18th, that's the day to meet. Thank you. So this is the story, The Starfish. There was an older man who used to walk along the cliffs above the beach. He did that every morning because he was a writer and he was looking for inspiration. And one day as he was walking along the cliff, he looked down at the beach and he saw something that looked like it was dancing. And he thought, I got to explore this. So he went down to the beach. And as he got closer, he realized it wasn't a dancer. It was a young man. And he was throwing something into the ocean. And as the older gentleman got closer, he realized that this young man was picking up starfish and throwing them back into the ocean. And he said to this young man, what are you doing? He said, well, the sun is up and the tide is going out and these starfish are going to be left here to die if I don't pick them up and throw them back into the ocean. And the old man, the writer, said to him, young man, look, there are starfish as far as the eye can see. You are not going to make a difference here. The young man just picked up a starfish and he threw it back into the ocean, and he turned to the old man and he said, it made a difference to that one. And so for me, the point of that story is, I don't think we're going to solve the world's problems as the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. I definitely know I'm not going to solve them. But years ago, there used to be that bumper sticker, remember, think globally, act locally. And I think we need to stop doing this big world picture, because what it does is it paralyzes us, but to focus in on the one thing that we can do, and to know that that one thing makes a difference. But we have to do that one thing. So I invite you to consider doing that one thing. I just want to make sure that I'm following the order of service here. Believe it or not, I am. So I'm going to invite you at this moment into a time of meditation. It is stunning out. I happen to have a view of about 5 acres. There are trees, there's the sky, there are osprey, there are blue jays, there are other birds, and I get very, very distracted. But on a day like today, I feel so incredibly grateful for all the gifts of life. So as we go into this time of meditation, I have no idea what your view is, but I am just going to ask you to try and take in the gifts of the day and let them fill you, your spirit, your heart, your body, wherever you are, whatever is in front of you. May it be so. Last week, we were lucky enough to have the singer-songwriter Melanie Demore with us, and she totally gave me a new spin on that song, Come By Here or Kumbaya. And she said that you need to understand that the truth about this song is that there is somebody who is in pain, who is reaching out and saying, please come by here, do something, make it better in some way. And I have heard that cry from so many in the congregation these past weeks. And so I want us to sing this song understanding, with that understanding that we really are asking for something, somebody to come by here and make it better. Suzanne?
Our reading today comes from Tony Kushner. At every moment in every person's life, there is work to be done. Always work to be done. Some of it small, some of it great. The great work, in a sense, always has to do with healing the world. And, as a necessary predicate to that, understanding the world. You rise every morning aware that you are called to this work. You won't live to see it finished. But if you can't hear it calling, you aren't listening hard enough. It is always calling, sometimes in a big voice, sometimes in a quiet voice.
For those of you who don't know who Tony Kushner is, he is a playwright who wrote Angels America in America, and the second part, which was called Perestroika. And he wrote that at a time when HIV/AIDS was still at a sort of critical point. and taking thousands and thousands of lives. As if, to act as if anything we do in the arena of our lives will have an effect, will change what needs to be changed, will matter. And not because we have hope or belief, but because we have to be able to live with ourselves. Teddy Roosevelt once said, "Do what you can with what you have, where you are." As if, to act as if. Because in these times that threaten to overwhelm and reduce us to inertia, our bodies and our hearts and our minds need to do something. And right now, that may be just to act as if. And it's more than, quote, faking it till you make it, which I find vacant and offensive. It's more like making a decision. It's making a choice. It's choosing to adopt and practice a way of being until it becomes reflexive rather than practiced. My neighbor David recently returned from a week's vacation that included a moratorium on social media and all news. And he told me that he realized that not only did he feel better, he had come to the conclusion that for him, there were only 3 things that he needed to know about and to do right now. 1, get Joe Biden elected. And remember, this was before Kamala Harris was even picked to be his VP. How to teach his students online, and how to take care of his family. 3 things. 3 things to focus on under the assault of all that there is to do in our world. And I have to tell you, I found his conclusion inspiring. It made me think about these times and how we're supposed to live in them, not just survive, but actually live. And I realized that so many of us have let COVID shape us with fear. And so I started to wonder if we could take on shaping the role of COVID in our lives as opposed to letting it shape us. Now, I'm not talking about refusing to wear masks and, carrying guns around to insist on your right not to wear the masks and infect everybody in all of creation. I'm not talking about not observing huge social distance between you and whomever else you come into contact with. And I'm not talking about the yet fully formed frontal cortex decisions to go to parties and bars, believing that we are somehow immune from contracting the virus, acting as if we are invincible. I'm talking about living with the realities of COVID that make it a part of our reality, of our daily living, without the fear of it becoming all of our daily living. We have to act as if it has become a part of our living, that it doesn't loom with gloom and doom and death. In her book, Who Do We Choose to Be? Facing Reality, Claiming Leadership, Restoring Sanity, leadership consultant Margaret Wheatley talks about creating islands of sanity in our world. She defines these islands as, quote, an interior space bounded by our values, commitment, and faith. It is leading against the norm. These metaphoric islands are in no way untouched by the realities of life, but rather are shaped by them. And Wheatley writes that facing reality can actually be an empowering act, that to sit with the despair, to sit with the uncertainty, without the pressure of layering on hope, that clarity actually can arise. In other words, it's only by letting reality in fully that we can find a way forward. That, quote, in the worst conditions, our most noble qualities are right there, offering us the capacity to help, to strengthen, and to love and to console. I will remind you that Wheatley is no Pollyanna. In fact, she talks a fair bit in that book about the fact that we are a nation in the last stages of its development, collapse. She references the work of John Glubb, who has studied ancient nations' rise and collapse. And it's a pattern that occurs over 10 generations, or approximately 250 years. Wheatley says that before we can act as if, before we can create and live into new ways of being, that the old ways must disintegrate and collapse. She really believes that we could have mitigated many of the disasters of our time, the rise of hatred, violence, poverty, ecological destruction, if we had had this one thing, will, the will. The ideas and the technology were there, they're still there. The will was not, it is not there. Listen to Wheatley's description of a nation on the verge of collapse and then compare it with where our country is right now. In all the descriptions of pattern collapse, there is both the human element of moral decay and the systemic element of institutional rot. Increasing disorder is fueled by money replacing service as the core motivator. Hierarchical leaders focused on maintaining powers at all costs. The disappearance of the future from decision-making. The preservation of the status quo by the few elites who prosper from it. And as things deteriorate, relationships disintegrate into distrust, self-protection, and opposition. Internal conflicts increase, and no one even notices the threat to the whole as they fight for their piece of the pie. Leaders use fear to control and manipulate people, and everyone moves into self-protection. Distractions, entertainments, and entitlements become primary instruments of allaying people's fears and for controlling them. Now, tell me that that doesn't sound exactly like what's going on right now in our nation. She also identifies something you all know about, something called post-truth, which is relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts, this is the important part, are less influential in public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. People feel free to dismiss any scientific research as bias. Mere opinion, like everything else. Once labeled as opinion, people feel ready to dismiss if it conflicts with their already formed personal views. In other words, my mind is made up. Don't confuse me with the facts or the truth. One of the things that Wheatley says is that all of us have filters that have been, quote, consciously and unconsciously created as the means to interact with the external environment. We all have a form of tunnel vision. It's our own perspective, and it's how we interpret the world by or through. And the reality is that all of our views, all of our perspectives, all of our filters are incomplete. Yet she names the fact that, quote, some views are more accurate and helpful than others, that not all stories are equal in their content or consequences. And I have to say, it was so reaffirming to my filters to read that last sentence. Not all stories are equal, because the stories that are being told in our culture right now are dangerous. They are stories that are leading to our collapse. They are not truth, but distortions thereof. And much of this, I hate to say it, is being fueled by social media. Wheatley says that in this digital age, identity has become something that has shifted from being culturally transmitted to having a sense of self within a group to an individual one where you can be anything you want. Ideas of objective truth and integrity disappear. Ethics and taking a stand don't matter. Popularity does. Just follow the tweets of the person who happens to occupy the White House right now. you will see the continuous pattern of what she has described. Now, just to add to your sinking sense that there's no way out of this mess, Wheatley also takes on the notion of hope. So many people wonder where the hope is now. So many people are feeling despairing and they're feeling hopeless. And you may or may not agree with her assessment, but listen carefully, because she says that efforts to stay hopeful are a waste of time and energy. Hope is not an innocent motivator. It is bipolar. Fear is its other nature. Every time we get lifted up by a hoped-for outcome, we get dragged down when we don't succeed. So we have hope, then fear, and it becomes an endless cycle. When we remove the filters of what we hope for, we can see what needs to be done and act. Okay, now for the as-if part of all of this mess. The part that Václav Havel, the former Czech leader, writes about when he says, hope is not the conviction that something's going to turn out well, but the certainty that something is worth doing no matter how it turns out. We may not be able to save the world, to solve the global problems that are closing in on us, but we can make a choice to live as if, to live motivated not by success, but by with what Havel names as that which is worth doing, no matter how it ends, no matter its ultimate impact. Then we will know we tried to do something that we can live with ourselves. To live this way, to live as if, is to live what Wheatley has come to call as a warrior of the spirit. The warrior of the spirit are decent human beings who aspire to be of service in an indecent, inhumane time. They train in service to people, to support our best human capacities for generosity, compassion, altruism, curiosity, creativity, caring. They are ordinary people who have made the extraordinary choice in this time to live with compassion and insight. They are warriors for the human spirit, who are awake human beings who have chosen not to flee. They abide, not like the Big Lebowski dude abiding. If you haven't seen the film, it's actually worth seeing. But abiding as in staying smack in the midst of the realities of our times and still offering compassion, accompaniment, insight, service to those right in front of them, right here, right now. To stay and not flee, and to be exemplars of the best human qualities. Wheatley concludes that it is a life well lived, even if it doesn't save the world. And she came up with this name, the Warriors of the Spirit, in response to an exercise in a workshop where she was a participant. The leader asked the participants to choose a name for themselves that was, quote, big enough to contain their entire life. Now think about that for a moment, because many of us, when we're asked to do something like that, would probably choose a word that reflected challenges we have overcome. Words like survivor, resilient, resistor. Instead, Wheatley chose warrior of the spirit because she wanted to choose a name that, quote, draws us to the future, a name that requires us to be fearless, a name that focuses on the task at hand, regardless of the outcome. And so I want us to consider the as-ifs of our lives, especially in this time when maybe the best we can do is offer the best of what we have to those directly in front of us, right here, right now. I want us to consider what it takes to create and sustain islands of sanity in the midst of our typhoon reality. Not removed from it, but smack in the middle of that reality. Islands of compassion, service, and care. To do that in today's culture is to be a resistor, to be resilient. And I want us to choose not to flee, but to abide. I want us to choose names that draw us toward the future, the as if. To create islands that there's a different story that can carry with it more weight or truth. To create islands of basic humanity, those islands of connection and care, intimate relationship, reflection, and meaning making. Maybe the best we can do is what Mother Teresa did in her work in the slums of Calcutta, because she dedicated her life to relieving suffering, not eradicating it. And there's a huge difference between those two. So choose a name for yourself that is more than what you have survived or overcome. Choose a name that draws you toward the future, whatever that future may hold, a soul or spirit name. You never have to share it with anyone. It can be part of or one of the ways that you choose to live as if. And like my neighbor David, I'm going to ask you to choose three things that you need to know or focus on to live and thrive in this time. Then give yourself to those things. Yes, there are 100,000 things that need doing. You'll crumble before all of those, so just choose 3. And until they become second nature, live into them as if. Even in this time when choice feels as if it's being incurred upon, we can still choose. We can choose who we want to be and how we want to be in this time right here, right now. We can make choices so that we can live with ourselves. We can choose to do things not dependent on outcome, but simply because they're worth doing. Call yourself by your true name. Listen to the call to the work. Choose 3 things you will focus on to frame and live your life with. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. Have the will. Act as if. Abide. May it be so. So be it. Blessed be. As it is the 3rd Sunday, it is a Sunday in which we choose to give money to a local organization that is carrying on the work and the mission, not only of Unitarian Universalism, but needs to be done. And today's offering will go to the group called Standing Up for Racial Justice, or SURGE. And it's a national network of groups and individuals who are working for a world where racial and economic justice thrive and where all communities are free from violence and fear. And they do their work through community organizing, mobilizing, and education. SURGE works to undermine white supremacy and move white people to act as part of a multiracial majority for justice. Today's offering will be directed toward SURGE's education fund. Please give as you are able. Thank you for your generosity. May these gifts be transformed, that lives may be transformed, that we may, in our lifetime, see racial justice. May it be so. What we can do: live cleanly and simply, 1 chair for each of us, 1 for a guest, beans, every shade of earth in glass jars. Our windows turned to face the rising sun. Treasure the beauty human hands have made. Worn spine books piled high on a pine shelf. A bowl glazed the colors of grass and water. A child's red-painted rocker at the hearth. Move gently on the earth. a house stained the color of trees, a leaf green roof, a fruit tree planted for each child we bring, a prayer of thanks for every seed. May it be so. So be it. Blessed be.